And just like that, another year has begun. And it's safe to say that 2023 was quite an eventful year for magic. As an industry, as a performance art, as a community, a lot happened for magicians. And so in this video, I want to take a look back at the year that has been, at all of the conflicts and controversies, all of the drama and announcements, the products and performances, and everything in between, to try and answer the question, is magic in a good state right now? I was recently on Craig Petty's podcast and he asked me a similar thing. What are my current thoughts on the way that magic is? Is magic in a good place? And more importantly, what do we need to do to improve it going into this new year? Hopefully, I'm going to answer all of that and more in this, the annual Magic Roundup of 2023. Can you call something annual if it's the first year you've ever done it? Not sure, but we're doing it anyway. In order to answer this question as thoroughly as possible, I'm going to divide magic up into some subcategories. We've got the performance subcategory, everything that happened to do with actually performing magic, the industry subcategory, all of the inner workings of products and all that sort of stuff, and then the community subcategory, everything that happened between magicians themselves. Starting off with the performance category, and actually the first thing I spoke about in 2023, my first video that year, was David Blaine's Vegas show going wrong. And I say going wrong with little air quotes because there was some discussion after this had happened as to whether or not he did this on purpose, which, let's be fair, would be a very David Blaine thing to do. However, I don't think he did that. I've watched the video again and I don't think that he has done that on purpose. I think you would have to be even more mad than David Blaine to actually do that, which is quite a statement. But that's not really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about David Blaine having a Vegas show in the first place, because he is one of those tentpole people in magic. What he does has ripple effects across the entire performance art, and so a big name like that having a successful Vegas show is only a good thing for magic. It means that more of the general public have a good perception of magic, which is always helpful. It means that everyone likes magic more and the industry and the art form get healthier and happier. I think often magicians, including myself, underestimate just how big of an impact one person having a successful magic show can actually have on the rest of magic. People see that someone is doing magic really well, they realize that they like magic, and so they want to hire magicians for their events and their weddings and their parties. It really does have a direct impact. And of course, David Blaine was by no means the only person to have a big magic show this year. We also saw the return of Dynamo. After many years under the radar, Dynamo returned with Dynamo is Dead. Also, Darren Brown had a stage show and I went to go and see it. It's called Unbelievable. He isn't in it, it's just written and directed by him. And as a concept for a stage show, it was super interesting to watch because you might not know this, the people in the show aren't magicians. They are actors or musicians or talented people outside of magic who have been taught how to do the tricks. I'm reminded of the very famous quote, "A magician is just an actor playing the part of a magician." Well, in this stage show, it's more true than ever because they really are just actors playing magicians. Also, little side note, I can't move on from talking about this show without mentioning something absolutely incredible that happened while I was watching it. So I sit down to watch the second half, me and a friend of mine, the lights dim as happens at the start of the second act, and then someone joins our row. There's like a load of empty seats next to us and someone comes and sits down who wasn't there for the first half. And I look across and it's Darren Brown, just sat in the audience a couple of seats away from me. It's literally Darren Brown, and he's got a little notebook and he's making notes. He was there for the whole of the second half of the show. I was just like freaking out inside, like, oh my god, my biggest magical hero is sat a few seats away. I was freaking out like an absolute nerd that I am. And then just before the end of the show, he like went off and that was it. It was just like amazing. I didn't go up and say hello or anything. He clearly wanted to like keep a low profile, but yeah, absolutely amazing. A big year for performing all round. People are liking magic in the public sphere, so hopefully that continues. Moving on to the next subcategory, which is of course industry. In the magic industry in 2023, there were hundreds of magic products released. and I have not got time to talk about all of them. No one has. That video would end up being 5 hours long, and no one would watch it, let's be fair. But I do want to talk about just a few, a little hand-picked selection of Magic products that were standout in some way. Whether that's because they were really, really good, or whether that's because they had drama attached to them. I want to focus on the good and bad because, again, we're trying to answer the question, is Magic in a good state right now? And performance-wise it is. Industry-wise, this is where I have a few more issues. I want to start by talking about decks. Now, I already made a whole video about decks, so I'm not going to cover old ground too much, but if you're unfamiliar, it was a single pocket, full deck index that you could access any card in seconds. And it was definitely one of the most hyped products of the year, if not the most hyped product of the year by its creators, Lloyd and Javier. When it finally released, the reviews started to come in, and it's safe to say there were a mix of opinions. There were some reviews that said it lived up to the hype, it really is as fast and workable as it says in the trailer. And then of course there were some other reviews that were unbiased and and said that it wasn't very good, it was poorly made, all that sort of stuff. Lloyd and one particular reviewer called Unbiased Magic Reviews came at loggerheads. There were a lot of words exchanged, there were a lot of accusations exchanged, and it got very, very heated. And that's why I think it's quite good, now that some time has passed, to look back on the deck situation with a more sort of level head, and understand that possibly some of the videos and some of the statements made at the time were very reactionary. It was very in the moment, the argument was heated, there were lies being thrown around, and it really was an intense situation that definitely spiraled out of hand. At the time, I said in depth what I thought about the situation, and looking back on it now, I think it's possible to understand two sides of the argument. I think it's possible to be a fan of decks as a product, to be a fan of Lloyd Barnes as a creator, and still understand that some of what David said was just his opinion. I don't think that a review can be fully unbiased because I think it's a reviewer's job to give their opinion. And opinions are always going to come with a lot of baggage, a lot of bias of all the things that you've accumulated over your experience of the product and even your experience of life. So David saying his opinion that he thought the product was, for example, poorly made, that was one of the statements he made, I think it's okay to understand that that was his opinion, that he thought it was poorly made, that he thought it was poorly designed, that he thought the instructions were not up to scratch. I think all of those statements you can understand as being his opinion. A lot of arguments online, not just in Magic, but throughout every aspect of the internet, a lot of arguments begin because people assume that someone's opinion is being stated as a fact. You give your opinion, that movie wasn't good, and people go, how dare you say that, it was good. Well, guess what? Both of those are opinions from two completely different people, and both of them are valid. When it comes to avoiding a similar situation like this happening in 2024, I think we need to understand, as magicians, that other opinions exist, other opinions are valid. You can disagree with another magician. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. What you think about a product, what you use a product for, is entirely up to you. So yeah, definitely a strange situation and definitely a lot that needs to be learnt from it. But moving on to the next topic in the industry subcategory, I want to talk about Illusionist. Of course, they would get a mention at some point in this video. Illusionist have a new CEO by the name of Geraint Clark. This was a really exciting development in 2023, and since then we've really seen Illusionist go in quite a different direction, quite a positive direction, and it's got the community talking about Illusionist in a really positive way. I think it is a massive change in the industry because we're seeing a new side to Illusionist. Now, I'm not saying that they're perfect, they've certainly had their things that I disagree with, but there have been a lot of really stellar products. One of the standout products of the year for me was Heartbeat, which was such a high quality Magic product. Everything from the packaging to the props to the teaching, it was all just so high quality. Obviously, a lot of Magic companies released a lot of great stuff, but I do just want to talk quickly about the amount of stuff. I mentioned it before, there were hundreds of Magic products released in 2023, and honestly, if I were to improve the industry with the click of a finger for 2024, I would ask for fewer Magic products. I just want less. I want more of a focus on quality than quantity. Because right now it just feels like there are some magicians who'll release any old crap. Just knowing that people will buy it, they'll release absolutely anything, and all of the gems, all of the hidden gems are being drowned in subpar products. A large percentage of the products released, in my opinion, are subpar, and that is not a good look for the industry, and that is not good for making new magicians and making magic better. So please, say it with me now, higher quality magic products. Higher quality magic products, that's all I'm asking. Feels like year after year I stand here and talk about how much is released and how much of it is bad. So can we put an end to that in 2024, please? Okay, moving on to the next topic. Next thing I want to talk about, now we're on the topic of Illusionist, is the Bounty Hunter Saga. This was a super interesting one, and one that still is an issue in the magic community. If you're unfamiliar, Illusionist set up a thing called the Bounty Hunter program. I'm not even sure if it was an official program, but essentially they were paying people, directly putting money in their bank accounts for taking down videos that taught stolen methods. So if you were browsing the internet and you came across a video that was teaching a method that the creator had no right teaching, you could take that video down for copyrighted material, send proof to Illusionist, and Illusionist in turn would send you money. People were getting paid for removing stolen methods from the internet. This is super interesting, and at the time I spoke about how it raised a lot of the ethical issues of teaching magic, but also some of the legal issues of copyright, because there were some questions over whether this was actually allowed. But all of that aside, I thought the idea was quite good. At the time, I predicted that this would be a short-term solution, and it was. Unfortunately, it was just a band-aid. This is not a sustainable thing that Illusionist can keep doing. There definitely needs to be a solution to this. If there is a system, if there is a way of dealing with this in a more sustainable way long-term, then I'm all for it. But at the moment, it just kind of feels like it's going to keep happening, which is a shame. However, talking of YouTube, a lot of positive things did come out of YouTube in 2023 in the magic world, including the rise of some absolutely fantastic YouTubers, including Jack Rhodes, Lloyd Barnes, Jason Ma. There are so many more I could list, but yeah, hopefully that continues to rise. And hey, hopefully I'm one of them. Wouldn't it be amazing if I hit 100,000 subscribers in 2024? Who knows? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button down below. That really does help me out. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and join me for 2024. Lots of videos to come. I have got big plans for projects and content, not just on this channel, but on another channel. I have started a brand new podcast with my best mate. It's called Purely Platonic Podcast, and we play games, we chat about life, we just generally have fun and have a laugh for an hour. Every Monday, there's going to be a new episode of this podcast. Honestly, already it's one of my favorite things I've ever worked on. It's a lot of fun, and I cannot wait for you to listen to and watch episode 1. It should be out on YouTube as you're watching this video, so I'll leave a link down to that in the description. Make sure to go and subscribe to that channel. Watch the episode, watch the trailer, see what you think, and yeah, it's gonna be really, really fun. So I can't wait for that this year, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video, wherever that will be. Until then, take care, guys.